Hello, it's Flex. You're watching Build Series Sydney, and today I'm with Osher Gunsberg, one of the biggest names in Australian media. So a very exciting day indeed. We are talking about his new book. Osher, how are you going?
I'm fantastic, thank you for asking.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I got to ride my motorcycle through the beautiful streets of Sydney this morning. All 125 piddly cc's of it. Like, yeah, come on! Didn't really get me very far. It's beautiful to be here. It's great to meet you.
Thank you so much.
I'm thrilled to be on your show.
Now, I want to keep the energy where it is, but talk about something quite serious.
Go.
So, back after the break, you've experienced some extreme highs and some lows, and you've told us all about it in your new book about love and life and shining a really important spotlight on mental health.
Yes.
So, a lot in one book. What motivated you to share that side of yourself with us?
Look, I think, Flex, what's really important is it's exactly what you do, is it's when we tell a story, we feel less alone. Okay, when we hear a story that's similar to our own or has enough resonance with our own story, we feel less alone, and that can make us feel extraordinarily better. When I've been sober for 9 years, 2 months, 16 days at the moment. Not that I count. But when I was getting sober, I couldn't understand what life would be like without alcohol. I couldn't understand what life would be like without drinking. It would be like if you blindfolded me, took me to your house, and then took the blindfold off and said, "All right, tell me about the cars you saw on the street."
Wow.
I'm like, I can't even tell you I know there's cars on the street. I know they exist, but I can't tell you. I have no clue how to picture it in my mind. So I had no idea what life would be like without drinking. But when I heard other people tell their story, other people whose story started very similar to mine, and then there was this part where we both had this moment of like, okay, we've got to stop drinking here. And then I hear them, and they're like, they're married again, they've got a kid, they've got their finances back together. I'm like, well, something happened between where I am and where they are that they know about that I don't. So maybe if I just listen and do what they tell me, I might have a chance to get where they are. And I did, and what do you know? I got married again. I've got a beautiful step-kid. I've got another kid on the way. I've got a house again. Finances are back on track. And because it's in sharing our stories and hearing other stories that we feel like there's at least hope that change can happen. Similarly, when I got quite sick, I went through episodes of psychosis that manifested as paranoid delusions, and I was living with both passive and active suicidal ideation, and it was very, very, very tough. I was the kind of person I am is like, okay, what am I going to do here? I know, I'll pitch Movember, I'll start a podcast about men's health, and I'll end up talking to a bunch of people that have survived suicide. And so I started talking to all these people. I remember actually it's one really powerful conversation where I'm talking to this guy and over Skype, and he's telling me his story, and I'm having these like full-on, episodes where I'm seeing things, and like it was really heavy. And I'm trying to keep it together. I'm hoping my face wasn't betraying that my body is telling me the world is ending, and I'm seeing all this crazy shit. But I'm hearing this person talk about how, they did some things and they listened to their docs and they took some meds and they got better. I'm like, well, maybe I can. Maybe it doesn't have to be like this every day. So all I'm doing when I wrote this book is just trying to give back what was given to me. That's it. And there's no bravery in it. There's you don't make money when you publish books in Australia. It's just simply a case of I need to let other people know what I found out. And that's it.
You're able to say or to recount your experience so matter-of-factly without a lot of emotion or, without a lot of, sadness or aggression or anything. Was writing the book quite cathartic or only cathartic in retrospect? I'm trying to imagine where you were when you were writing it.
I don't know if catharsis is the word. It was quite difficult, and I have to thank my wife a lot for dealing with me, because I could write basically for about 4 or 5 hours at a time. Because when you write a book, like that's your job, all right? So this is what you do every day, like 4 or 5 hours writing. I'd write like 45 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 45 minutes on, 10 minutes off. And after about 4 or 5 hours, just porridge would come out. I was like, okay, I've got to stop for today. But because I'd been digging in the dirt and like scratching at the eczema, I'd come out of the room just like, and Audrey would be there to, okay, I'll get on your bike, go lift some weights or something. Go and wash this off.
Get on your bike.
Like literally on my bicycle. Moving my body and exercise is a very, very important part of managing my mental health, and I'd imagine many people's, because a lot of the things that we need to make our body feel better, make our head feel better, already exist within us. But it's a bit like the citrus fruits in your fruit bowl. You got to squeeze them to get the juice out.
Ooh,
so
analogy.
that involves like big compound movements, like squats and push-ups and things like that. I can't run anymore, so but running is a really good one, and also just any amount of like lifting the heart rate for more than 20 minutes will start to release the dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and endorphins that will. Oh, everything's better. So honestly, I can have a shit day, get on a bike, and after about 20, 30 minutes, go, oh, right, okay, it's not as horrible as I thought it was, because all these things are just flooding into my brain. So I don't know if it was particularly cathartic. It was difficult. It was difficult to write it in parts, particularly recounting some of the more awful things that happened. Luckily, I wrote a lot of it down, so I was going back to my notebooks in this really kind of angular, frightened handwriting, because I was terrified. And it was like, I'm glad it's done. I'm glad it's done. But when you write a book, you don't write it once. You write it about 4 times, because you might be able to, like, say you're cooking an incredible dish and go, and there's my favourite thing to cook. And then, I don't know, Nigella Lawson comes in and goes, oh, Flex, darling, have you thought of putting a bit of this and a bit of that? And you're like, oh, that's going to make it so much better. Like, I'm not the best book writer ever, but other people are. And I just shut up and listen to what other people tell me. And so you end up writing about 4 times. And then when you read the audiobook, you do it again. So it was actually my wife produced the audiobook, and there was a couple of moments there where, like, I just had to stop down. I recorded it in my house in the same place I do my podcast, and it was a couple of moments there. I was just weeping, bringing it all back. But it was nice to be able to go, okay, and only then bring it up again when I did the live shows. I did like 8 live shows around the country, and that's emotionally tough to bring it up, but you want to give people the authentic experience of the story. But again, it's very important to share that, because people need to know. People need to know that you can get better if you work at it.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting to me, because I think while you're writing the book, it would have been at the top of your list to make sure your mental health was on track. So what did you do to make you feel good in that stage? What was your act of self-care, or just something to remind you to stay present and not sort of like, delve back in and spiral?
Or like I said, exercise was a really important part. I'd often get up and ride, or usually just ride my bike in the morning to get everything flowing, and then afterwards in the mid-afternoon, I'd either go for another ride or I'd just take the dogs go for a walk and kind of be in the space and try as hard as I can to, okay, so the sky's blue today, the air feels nice, just try to, this is what my feet feel like in my shoes. Just try to be in this space, in this moment.
Absolutely. And what happened on the break? Because clearly back after the break is an important place to focus on, but the break itself, I feel like we put a lot of context around why it's so important that you're sharing this side of you. So if you had to kind of amalgamate that experience without giving away the book.
I made a psychosis pun in the book title of my book, because that is, I work on television, particularly in live television,
It's a good one.
when you do a thing called a tease before you go to a commercial. So for example, Flex has cooked this fantastic dish.
Added some extra seasoning because Nigella said so.
Did she make it into the top 10?
Back after the break.
Exactly. But that's also the word that you use when you have a break with reality, when you have a psychotic break. So that's the pun that I had. So the break I'm referring to is when my ability to discern reality got completely distorted. Everything I could see, touch, taste, smell, hear was running through this filter that I could no longer trust what was real or not real. And that was very frightening. I don't recommend it.
I want to talk about, back after the break, the live show. As we recount the tale of your life, it can get quite deep, quite hectic, but you've turned it all into an amazing, quite uplifting live show where you were singing and playing guitar and speaking about your experience quite candidly and excitingly. How did that come to be? What happened first conceptually for you? The book, the live show?
Well, the book started, there's a storytelling show that runs in Sydney called Story Club. It runs every first Monday of every month at a theatre called Giant Dwarf, and they'd invited me along a couple of times, and I'd been involved there. And they did one big benefit show at the Sydney Town Hall, which is a humongous, beautiful old room. I don't know, there's about 1,500 people there. And I decided I'd been there a couple of times already. I'd done the show a few times already, but there was this opportunity. They often give you a topic to talk about. So just write a 1,500-word story. It takes about 10 minutes. And I just told a story about the day that my brain popped and the reality started to distort, and I started to see things, and it was really, really horrible. And I talked about, the fact that I was on antipsychotics at that point, and that it was because of my wife and my great support that I have at work that I'm able to keep going. And basically talking about, you might hear about complex mental illness, and you might think it's someone who hasn't showered in a month barking in a park. Well, it's the bloke who's counting roses on your telly as well. So just think about that. And so that story, I got invited to tell it a few more times on stage, and then through my CEO at Sane Australia, my director on the board at Sane Australia, he introduced me to Catherine Milne, the publisher at HarperCollins, and she heard the story and she read some of my other writing and said, "All right, let's go make a book out of it." So I wrote the book, and then I was like, "Well, this book started as a story at a storytelling show. Why don't I make a storytelling show out of the book?" But I just threw some songs in because I'm a terrible actor. And when you're trying to talk about, childhood trauma and other fairly horrible things that happen to you, it's kind of easier if you sing them. And it's also quite insidious because I deliberately wrote them very, very catchy. So people will be at work the next day humming songs about awful, awful things. It's kind of like Mike Mills, who's a musician who goes by the name of Toe Hider. He's done all the music for my podcast since I started in 2013, and he's an incredible guy. He's an unbelievably talented guy. So he'd come up on stage with me, and I basically would. I wrote the lyrics and he wrote all the music. I would hum into my phone and goes, it's kind of like the most horrible Patsy Biscoe play school song you could ever imagine, but it's about this awful thing that happened to me when I was 9. And it sounds like this, and I kind of like hum it into my phone, and then about an hour later he'd go like this, and he'd just like have this fully mixed, complete, orchestral 5-part harmony thing going on. I was like, yes, Mike,
that's
exactly.
it. Yeah,
that's kind of what we went with. So. And plus, you want to put on a show. Performances are important, and so story song is it's not a new format. It's been done for years. Jimmy Barnes has done it incredibly successfully.
Yeah, that's true.
So we just kind of went with that model, and it seemed to work.
You said easier to consume for you or the audience, because I find
you don't want to be sitting in a room. We've all been to the one man show, and after about 25 minutes, you're like, oh man, I got to pee. I ultimately, I work in broadcasting. I've been working in broadcasting since 1994. I'm really aware of how to keep someone's attention, and you don't want to be losing someone's attention right at the point where you've got the really killer, line to deliver, or the actual core, the nucleus of the show, the full message. So, being able to change gears through a performance is really important. Zoe Norton-Lodge, who started Story Club with Ben Jenkins, she directed the show and helped me write it, and she was really helpful in making sure I did that. And the show ended up coming out at like 110, 120, but people were captivated the whole time, which I'm really grateful for. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to talk about clearly the person you were, or the person you're writing about in this book is not the person you are today, which makes me think that the audience is quite different as well. Did you find it difficult to try and communicate this part of yourself to a person who might know you as the guy from Idol, and the layers and the nuance of your story?
No, not really. No, not really, because, as long as you give people enough of a hook to recognise, okay, this is what was happening. This was, the blonde guy on the telly with the smile. So that's the part but you only saw that for a few minutes at a time, once a month, once a week. Here's what went on the other 6.5 days. Well, yeah, you didn't know about that, did you?
Yeah.
Well, here's a song about what I was really doing during that time. Yeah. And which was kind of fun. It was always kind of fun getting people to clap along and sing a song about compulsive masturbation. That was fun.
Just something light. I want to talk about your podcast, the Osher Gunsberg podcast. Almost 300 episodes, which is incredible. Was that like one a day? Was that one a day for 2? How does that work?
I shoot it out every Monday.
Oh, nice. I read somewhere that when you were younger, you were quite anxious and you found it really difficult to connect with people. But now, every Monday, you're inviting people into your space to talk with you freely and candidly about quite deep topics. How did you get to that point?
Oh, look, I think it's like anything. Luckily I was living in North America. I lived in Los Angeles for 10 years until 2015, and I was there when the podcast boom just exploded. The thing that started everything that we're sitting in the middle of now. And I always wanted to start a podcast. I'd been in radio since I was 20. I was like, man, I've really got to do something. I'd had a couple of fits and starts, but then I realized the great difference between me and everyone that started a podcast is that one day they just started.
Yeah.
It's the same with anyone that wrote a book. No one said, hey, you're now an author. No, they just started and then, now I'm an author. That's the trick that a lot of people don't understand. As long as you give yourself, if you give yourself permission to act, you will then start moving into that space, and before long, people just start accepting that that's who you are now and that's what you do now, and they treat you with respect as such. So one day I'm like, the only difference between me and people who have a podcast is they just started one day. So there's an Australian comedian by the name of Scott Dooley, and I was out with another mate of mine. He's a stand-up by the name of Luke Heggie. I've known him since I was 8, and he was just doing the comedy clubs that night, and I was just tagging along. They just get up and do 10 minutes of test material as they go around. I think he did about 5 clubs that night, and I saw Dools. I'm like, hey, Scott, hey, buddy, good to see you. Hey, man, you want to come on a podcast? Yeah, sure. How's Tuesday? Tuesday's great. No worries. I'll see you at my place. No worries. He didn't know that I didn't have a podcast. I didn't have microphones. I didn't know how to record it. I didn't know how to upload it, nor did I know how to publish it. But I had 3 days to figure it out. Yes. So I did.
Yes.
And that's it. I've been doing it every Monday since. And I think it's like anything. As long as you do it with repetition and you do it to a schedule and you make sure it happens, you amass this extraordinary body of work. And that podcast, while it's just starting to break even money-wise, it's brought me so much more value and changed in many ways what people think I'm capable of. But the greatest compliment is when my friends listen to it and go, oh, that's the guy we know. Yes. Oh, yeah, that's the guy we know. Yeah, it's cool.
Absolutely. I was listening to an episode the other day, one of my favourites, with John Haidt, about safetyism and coddling, and it hit a spot. But I want to ask you, of all the episodes you've done so far, which one has stood out to you as your favourite, or the one that resonated the most?
I can't pick a favourite. I'd say, look, I'm really grateful that I was able to have a conversation with my wife about what it was like. Because when we started dating, I was going through some, suicidal ideation was a part of my day. I was on 2 kinds of antipsychotics, an SSRI and an NSRI. Like, when you're trying to find an emotional connection with someone and your emotions are just basically being squashed right down, and your testosterone is out, forget about it, and you're trying to start a romantic relationship with someone, you can't light a fire if there's no matches in the matchbox, Flex, if you know what I'm saying.
No.
It was very difficult to start dating, all right? And so she and I had this conversation about, how it was to be with me. And of all the podcasts that I've done, and I've done podcasts with, gold medal winning Olympians and Oscar winners and, people of incredible, success. The one that I did with my wife, I think, is the one that has helped more people than anything else, because it was the first time I can think of that someone in that carer role was able to speak of their experience. Because if anyone with a complex mental health issue, there's got to be 4 or 5 people around them that are affected as well. Their co-workers, their boss, their son, their daughter, their lover, their husband, their wife, their mum, their dad. And those people love them very much. They want to care for them. But sometimes what's going on with them makes them be quite, I guess, sometimes repellent or standoffish. Yeah. I was really lucky that my wife was able to see me and my sick brain as 2 separate things. And that conversation, I think, we were able to elocute. She's a very, very clever lady, my wife. She was able to elocute very well what it was like to be with me. And she particularly described when I was in it, when I was having it would come and go, I'd be in it for an hour or 2. And she would describe having to bully her way back.
Ooh.
Bully her way into it. And no, that's not happening now. I know you believe it's happening, but it's not. And just push her way into the room where I was just convinced that all this horrible stuff was going on. And nearly grab me by the collar and go, come on, be here right now in this moment. Feel my skin on your face. Feel my touch of your hand. And describing that. And the amount of people that wrote in and said, that's what it's like. And when I did the live shows, the amount of people that would come to the front of the line to sign things, and they would introduce their husband and go, "This is my Audrey."
Ah.
Yeah, the one person that went, "You're worth it. I'm fighting for this. I'm going to fight that fucking thing in your head, and we're going to fight it together."
Did you recall it as she recalled it, or were you just like, this is news to me?
It was very difficult when you're on that amount of drugs, and between those meds and the cortisol that was flying through my system, because I'm in this constant stress response, it does affect your hippocampus, it does affect your ability to remember things, which is very hard. It's very, very frustrating to have chasms of nothingness in your memory, particularly in those important early parts of your relationship. It's very difficult. That I remember blips of it, but it was just so awful. Like many horrible things, we tend to block it out. So it's tough. But Audrey's recollection, I believe, because she's a very clever lady.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you feel as though you're in a position now that you've shared so much of your past lived experience with us that you have almost not a responsibility, but I guess people now expect you to continue sharing yourself with us, your love life, your future experiences, how your mental health is tracking. Do you feel pressure to do that?
I don't feel any pressure at all. No, I think as long as I'm serving a greater idea of trying to make it more normal to have these kind of conversations in our community, so that when someone starts this kind of conversation with you, it's not weird. It's like, oh, right, that's the thing. Okay, all right, not that I have it, but say, for example, if someone chose to disclose, I would never recommend anyone does disclose until they're ready and feel good and supported. But if someone chose to disclose and someone says, yeah, how was your weekend? Fuck, I've got bipolar, so this thing that I was supposed to go to on Saturday was really hard. Yeah. You don't go, like, it's just a thing. It's like a sore knee. Or it's like, I don't know, it's kind of something you're born with. So I guess it's more like, the analogy I like to use is like it's type 1 diabetes, So if someone said, how was your weekend? Man, my insulin was all fucked up. My pump didn't work and I had a low and I was out for all of Saturday. Missed the football game. That sucks. All right? No one would blink. But if someone said to you, my head was all fucked up, I missed a dose of my meds and I was out for a whole afternoon and I missed the Swans game. You'd go like, you're like, no, it's just a thing that's gone wrong with someone. That's how they were born, and it's okay. They're managing it. It's fine. And as long as I can continue to try and make that more normal in our culture, in our society to speak of, and try to certainly encourage others in our community who maybe are from backgrounds where help-seeking behaviour isn't exactly top of mind. I mean, I'm a straight white guy. I can tell you all kinds of shit's wrong with me and I'll still have all the doors will be open for me, all right? But if you've only come to this country like 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you'd be probably reluctant to say or go to a doctor because you've already struggled so much to get here, and you must struggle so much just before you even get out of bed because of your cultural background or the way you present visually. You may be reluctant to go, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not even going to go to the doctor. Because in my own country, if I disclose this kind of stuff, it can be quite dangerous. So just try as much as I can. Just keep talking about it. I hate the word stigma. I hate it. Because self-stigma is also really important, because I really experienced self-stigma, all right? To the point where I didn't want to have what I had so badly, I didn't take the meds, all right? Which is a classic. My doctor told me to take this drug only if I really need it. So therefore, if I don't take it, I don't need it. Problem solved.
Yeah, done.
All right? Which did not work. And was really bad and ended up horribly. So don't do that. But similarly, self-stigma can be a really tough thing. And just talking about it as much as possible, I think, is what I try to do. And do I feel pressure to... I think I've always managed to keep a fairly decent barrier between what I'm happy and prepared to and the amount I'm prepared to disclose that will be enough to get the message across. But yesterday I was at Aldi with my wife.
Nice.
Nice. She's got that $1-2 coin she keeps in her purse, because no one pays for anything with cash anymore. But you have that $1-2 coin so you can use the trolley at Aldi, right?
Oh, got it.
And otherwise they lock up. And we're coming out. We've got the IKEA bag here, and we're discussing this. I was going, did you get the frozen things? Oh, no. We look down, and I just see this massive throaty barrel of a 600 ml Canon lens. I'm like, fuck. And like, there's another one over there. There's 2 paps. I'm like, guys, it's fucking Sunday afternoon.
Just at Aldi.
Come on. All right. TV guy buys groceries. Like, but we came up with a thing. We might start to recaption whatever photos they have. They printed some shit the other day. It was completely false. And I kind of want to recaption it. There was this one where I was wearing a Dio shirt, and it was around Christmas time, and we were I don't know what we were talking about. We were talking about something, but you know, when you talk with your partner, occasionally you will be emotive. And it was taken through the window, so it looked all kind of like this, that, the other. And I wanted to recaption it like it goes, "Trouble in Paradise" is what they wrote. It was like Osher, and I actually wanted to write something like heated discussion over whether Ronnie James Dio is a better lead singer than Ozzy Osbourne for Black Sabbath.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, Dio. Mob rules, man. Mob rules.
Of all the things you've seen written about yourself in your 20 years in the media, what's been the most like outlandish, sensationalizing? You're like, this, there's no truth, and I can't even be bothered thinking about it.
Look, I wouldn't want to pay any credit. I wouldn't want that person who wrote any of those bylines or any of those things. I think the most awful thing was that when I got papped and I got really horribly body shamed, really horribly, and there was this massive headline, and you know, I was on antipsychotics at the time, and these drugs are great because they make you feel a whole lot better in your head, but you put on about 1 kilo a week, and there was a photo taken of me trying to get into a wetsuit. No, nobody looks good getting in. Not even Steph Gilmore looks good getting into a wetsuit. All right, you look good when you're in it, and you probably look good when you're out of it. But getting into it, it's kind of like no, it doesn't look good. Anyway, so they got me really badly, and it was really horrible. And I'm like, you know what? No. And so I took them to the press council, and of all the people that have been body shamed in the press, it took a white man to get a ruling in their favour. Which says something.
Says too much.
I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
But it was pretty ordinary when it did happen because it was bullying. It was straight up bullying. And if it happened in any other workplace, people would be out on their ass. That's it. So I think that thing, to be honest, like that. But it's important that people know that you don't know why another person may be carrying a few extra kilos. All right. You might be going, come on, man, I can go to bloody F45. Why can't you? Or I can avoid the donuts. Why can't you? It's like, I'm boring. I'm sober and at the time vegan. I'm now celiac. I've discovered I'm celiac as well. And I was riding like 250 kilometers a week on my bicycle, and still I'm putting on weight because it messes with your metabolism. It changes your insulin response. So it doesn't matter even if I was eating healthy. It didn't matter. I was still putting on fat. But you know, it's just some guy with a long lens seeing dollar signs.
Just some guy with a long lens seeing dollar signs.
Look,
that's all it is. Yeah.
I choose a different way to feed my family. I wouldn't do their job, but if that's what they want to do, it's their karma, man.
Absolutely. I love that you pay special attention to making sure that you communicate your complex narrative. Like, you can talk about, you know, reality TV and mental health in the same breath, and it's not a problem. But I want to touch on your experience in TV. 20 years, as I've said, you've done everything and done it well. You're welcome. Let's talk reality TV and how you exist in that space. What's been the coolest experience to date? Because you've seen it evolve into what people would have seen as quite regressive in some ways, to quite some of the most progressive TV we're seeing in a lot of states.
So there's two things that really stand out for me. The first Australian Idol Grand Final, which it almost like it may as well have been in another century. There was dial-up at best. There were GSM phones. If you wanted to text, you had to go G. Go 5555 3333 5555 to go ha. Right.
Developing something here. It's not.
There's no auto correct. There's none of that. Like trying to tune someone on text was like, that's why you got all those photos of people like. Anyway, so that was extraordinary. 1 in 5 people. It was the high watched that show. 1 in 5 Australians watched that show. Wow. It's unbelievable. More, I think. It was humongous. It was like 2.3 or 4.1. It was just massive numbers, which just don't exist in television anymore. And we were on the front steps of the Sydney Opera House. It was fireworks. It was the most fun ever. And, you know, we were just two guys at the front of it. There was probably 150, 180 crew on that day, and we'd all been working super hard for the last 3 or 4 months. We were a well-oiled machine. It was freaking amazing when you're in that kind of team environment, and all of us worked together to make it happen. That was an incredible experience at work. And I think the other thing that I get a lot of privilege out of is watching now on this show that I do, or this range of shows that I do in the Bachelor world. I get to watch people have these extraordinary emotional shifts in them. And I think the biggest one for me, and the most honoured I felt to witness, was Sam Wood, who was our third Bachelor. And, you know, here's this guy, he's got this, you know, incredibly successful career, he's ripped, he's beautiful, he's charming, he's funny, but he's still single.
Yeah.
You can't figure out why. And somewhere along the way, he came to this realisation, and there was this switch. And I got to watch this man go through this, you know, emotional shift and just literally fall in love in front of my eyes. And now they're married. She already had a kid when they met. They've got, you know, another one on the way.
Yep.
And to be able to be a part of their happiness and witness that, you know, people say a lot of stuff about our shows. They're people that aren't there. These people, they're real emotions, real emotional reactions, real, you know, beautiful, you know, human beings falling in love, you know, in this beautiful way. Really happens, and it happens when I go to work. It's pretty great.
It is pretty great.
It's great.
Because it's really difficult. You don't really see such genuine connection in the flesh in real time. So sometimes when you do see it via TV, it can feel disingenuous, or it can feel as though it's been contrived. And I'd like to ask, in what ways do you wish that maybe The Bachelor, for example, would be demystified a little bit? Because there are a lot of rumours about what it is, but what isn't it?
Demystified.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's important to have a bit of an element of mystery about things. You know, like we're making a show that's larger than life. You know, like we could totally take an Uber. No, we're taking a helicopter. You know, come on, to a jet ski that we then get to a boat. You know, like how many modes of transport can you get between a date card and her meeting him?
However many it takes.
As many as it takes. You know, how many drones can we put up? We're telling a story. We're telling a love story, and you know that's important. I guess you know we just film it. We just film it. You know, they're going through their experiences, and we film it. I think that's the other thing I'll say is like people really do fall in love. To use if you're playing Bachelor Bingo, if you are there for the right reasons, it's a very, very clever television format. But people really do fall in love, and they unfortunately really do get their hearts quite hurt. And we are there to help them. And I think if I was to demystify anything, it would be that we have a duty of care. Your workplace here has OH&S. You have an HR department. You have people that are here to look after everyone to make sure that, you know, they're not going to suffer harm coming to work. We have a duty of care. We have psychologists who, you know, talk to people before they start, during, after, way after, sometimes years later, still, you know, making sure that they're okay. We have, you know, people who are within a production that have, you know, we really care. We want to make sure that people are all right. And we do make sure that we surround as much as I can, you know, tell you, like, we want to make sure that these people are okay. We are trading in the currency of their emotional response, and we're filming it, okay? So we want to be sure that they're protected around revealing those things or feeling those things and making sure they're okay afterwards. But if there's going to be an argument on camera and then we cut to, you know, someone else, it's not really going to help the story if we then show you the 45-minute debrief that they've had with the on-set psych, and we would never show that anyway because it's confidential, all right? So people may think that there's no support. No, there is. There's lots of it. And there's been support on set since the first season, I think 3 episodes in, of Australian Idol in 2003. And I wouldn't be involved if there weren't. But, of course, we'll never show that because it's confidential. But please know that it happens, and it happens a lot. And, you know, as much as they choose to engage with it, it's offered.
Are you personally mentoring anyone or being like a big brother to a few of these contestants, or not quite?
What's interesting about these, I can't because I cannot influence their decision making in any way at all. You know, I can't.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, why don't you tell her this or that, and then she doesn't give you a rose. It's like, well, he told me to say that.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that. It's like on Idol. I can't say, oh, you know what? You should totally sing "Inagata Vida" by Iron Butterfly. That'll really do
That'll
it.
do it.
Yeah. And then, why don't Australia voted me off? He told me to. Like, you know,
Yeah.
maybe don't sing a 14-minute long song next time. Yeah. Don't Google that. It'll take you forever to get through. It's really boring anyway. But yeah. So yeah, I can't influence them. If they ask me questions, a couple of guys have asked me about what it is to, you know, date someone who's got a kid. Those men who were a part of, you know, the show that were looking at that as an option. So I would only ever share my experiences and then maybe ask them questions to then try and get them closer to how they felt. That's it.
And do you think there's a formula for love?
What, on television or in the world?
Is there a difference anymore?
yeah, there is. Is there a formula for love? I would ask you to picture this. Anything that you want positive in your life cannot enter unless there's space for it. If say you've got a full bookshelf, all right, you can't put the book about this is, you know, the man or the woman that I met and everything got better if the bookshelf is full. You're going to have to take the book of like, I hate my dad and it's his fault that everything's bad. You're going to have to take that book out.
All right, just
you're going to have to take the, you know, I didn't get fired because I did the wrong thing. I got fired because my boss is an asshole. You're going to have to take that out.
Yeah.
Put it down. You have to make some space. You know, no relationships ever work for me because it was always the other guy's fault or the other girl's fault. You have to take the book out. You can put it down. Now you got a space. All right. Now you got this space where like, okay, so I've taken responsibility for these things. These are the things I can control. Now there's space there. Let's try and find the person that can fit in here. And I think that's one thing I would tell you. And the other thing I would tell you, which is super important, and I wish it was told to me earlier, there is no such thing as the one. There is only the one who's willing to work on it with you. And if you find that person, hold on tight and do the work, because if you find the one that's willing to work on it with you, then you're going to be all right. Because your relationship, my big brother would tell me, your relationship will be, you know, as many years as you're together, your relationship will be 3 different things for each one of those years. It'll be, oh my God, we just met. And say, for example, oh, we work here at this place here in Sydney, and we're young and exciting, and we live in the inner city, and we ride scooters to work and drink coffee and have scarves. And then, you know, we go to a different, and then we go on holidays, and now we're taking 9 months to go travel the world. Now our relationship's different because we're wearing backpacks and we're annoyed at each other because, you know, we can't sit together on a plane, or someone's got a weird dietary thing, or, you know, they fart a lot in the camper van. Okay, then we got pregnant. Okay, well now we've got a kid. Okay, oh, the baby's coming. Like, so that relationship there is completely different to the relationship that started when you were at work. So you can't expect the same rules to apply, and you can't expect it. You have to constantly realize that your relationship will change with the other person the whole way through life. And why can't things go back to the way they were? I think we get into a lot of problems when why can't things go back to things will never be the way they were. And always remember, you've got a thing called hedonic recall. You'll always remember the good parts. You always remember, oh yeah, that time that I went to Ubud and I saw that water ceremony, that was amazing. You'll forget how your luggage was lost and that you shat through the eye of a needle for 3 days because you ate some lettuce that was washed wrongly, or that someone nearly killed you on a scooter.
It happens.
All right? You'll only remember the water ceremony, and when people ask you, go, it was so spiritual. And I did my 400 hours of yoga training. It was brilliant. But you don't remember the horrible things. All right? So remember, you got to be critical about how you remember your life, because it's never as good as you thought it was. These right now, what you and I are talking in this moment, these are the good old days.
I'm working on being present, so I'm going to take that in, hold it tight, and never let it go. I like that a lot.
Oh, you can let it go, make it in a little water boat and send it off.
Send it off to
something else is going to have to come along.
We've got some audience questions for you, and they're going to range from a few topics, but I'm sure you'll do fine at answering them. The first is from Mike, and they ask, should Shannon Noll have won the first Australian Idol? Just some hard-hitting stuff to just really round off this conversation.
Shannon Noll did win the first Australian Idol, but Australia only saw the version that Guy won.
Okay. So, I mean, am I the only one shot? Okay, no, that's we're gonna hold on to that.
Was I not supposed to say we made two? It was like MasterChef. We shot two endings. No, we did it live. No.
You've got bits. This is great.
Look, it's controversial victory.
I
but I can't tell you how proud I am to have been involved in the genesis of musical careers that have put food on the table for families for over 15, 16 years now. Shannon would always say, the people vote with their wallets, and he's 100% right. He's 100% right. That guy, I think he played 200 shows one year in Australia. He played 200 shows. That's a lot of touring, man. You don't get to play 200 shows if 200 shows where the people don't want to come and see you. All right? And he's still making money. He's still got a career. All right? So, yes, Guy was the one that Australia went, it's you, but I reckon we had two winners on that night. Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that was confidential information.
No worries.
I'm sure no NDAs have been broken.
But there is a video version of Shannon Noll's Angels Brought Me Here, because they both had to create a music video that week. So whoever was the winner, they'd be able to release the video. So there, and it's the same set. He's wearing the same white coat. It's shot for shot.
Stop it.
It's shot for shot. It totally exists. And there's his version that they recorded as well, because they had to get it ready. They had to press it up. There were CDs that were made in the olden days. There were CDs that were made of Shannon's version of Angels Brought Me Here, because that was the winner's single.
This is a lot of information.
It's true. That part's true.
This feels like vault information.
That part's true. The two endings isn't true.
Either or. I'm happy to go with either. Truth is subjective. We've got a question from Hannah, and they ask, if you could do your time again, would you not do Australian Idol, as that was a time during which you struggled with your mental health?
Hannah, no, because right now, in this moment, in this day, everything is awesome. I have an extraordinary relationship with my wife. I love my stepdaughter to death. We have a baby on the way. Work's good. I could not be here had I not done and said everything that I did and said up until this very point in time. So, no.
I love that. Got time for a few more. Let's do it. All right. How important is it for young people to speak openly about mental health? Any thoughts on shows like 13 Reasons Why and reports that there have been more youth suicides because of that? And this is by Alicia.
That's like 5 questions in one.
It's, we can start with the first one. How important is it for young people to speak openly about mental health?
What's super important about that I've found, I would never encourage anyone to disclose for the sake of disclosing.
It's a good distinction.
What is super important is that in my experience only, if you disclose without in the same breath discussing your management strategy, you are essentially, in my opinion, putting the responsibility for you to feel better on that other person.
Oof, yeah.
And that can be very difficult for them, and it can also trap you in, you don't want to be inadvertently putting yourself in a victim state, because if you're a victim, you're powerless. All right. If you say, oh, I did that because I've got this, that's a bit shit. Take responsibility for what your brain's doing. Take responsibility for your role in it. All right. And I wrote all about it. Like my brain was already bad, but once I put the drugs and alcohol on top of it, I pretty much smashed my foot into the floor and just accelerated what else was going to happen anyway. All right. So take responsibility for the fact that whatever you've done. All right. So okay, and then at the same time say, this is my management strategy. Like, so why haven't you done this yet? Look, I struggle with anxiety. However, I did this and I do that breathing and I see my psych and I do this. It's just today's a tough day. But, I have management strategies around it. So, I'll have it to you as quick as I can. All right? Because that way it's not they know about it, but then it's also not their responsibility to fix it. So that's what I would say about disclosure. And that was the formula I used when I told Network 10 and Warner Brothers about what was going on. So I was really open with them because they needed to know. It's like why I was a bit weird, and why I was busting out of my suits and all that kind of stuff. As far as that Netflix show, it's a very, very tricky line that and I don't know if there's any proof that can fundamentally link that claim that you're making to reality. It seems like the sort of thing someone might put as conjecture and then get reblogged 50,000 times and suddenly it becomes reality. I doubt it. But we have to be very careful with how we report suicide, yet we also have to talk about it. So it's very difficult to discuss suicide or discuss attempts and not then, like, we have to find a better way to talk about it. But it has been proven that if you go into too much detail or you lionize or whatever, it can lead to copycat behavior. This is fundamentally proven. So we have to be very careful about it. And I would encourage anyone who's considering writing or talking or whatever about it to be aware of those guidelines. And those guidelines are really easy to find. They're really easy to find.
It's that duty of care we were talking about before.
Yeah.
Like you have a responsibility to your audiences, indirect and direct, to make sure you're not leading them astray.
Yeah.
I've got one more question from Sammy. Oh, sorry, were you?
No, go. I said hit me.
Like, hit me. Oh,
yeah.
Figuratively.
That's the thing, you know.
Language.
James Brown used to always say hit me, okay? Someone said the other day, it's like, I'll never go to a wedding again and hear a Michael Jackson song. It's like, well, does that mean we can now no longer listen to James Brown? Because he wasn't a nice guy either.
Let's unpack it.
We can't listen to Jimi Hendrix. We can't listen to John Lennon. There's a lot we can't we can't listen to Tupac. I went to prison.
Think it's can't and won't. It's like knowing what you know. Are you still comfortable?
Yeah.
And then if you are, then the agency is yours to be.
What do we do? What do we do?
You have agency.
My midline is that I'm only listening to the JBs at the moment, which is James Brown's band without James Brown, and Maceo Parker led it, and it's fucking great.
I was thinking the Jonas Brothers, but either or. I even went to Justin Bieber before I went.
So in case the grey in my beard hasn't told you, I'm 45. Like, I'm old.
Could have fooled me.
I'm old. I'm an old man. So yeah, JB's Monorail is my favourite song at the moment, because it's about a monorail and it's also really funky and there's a great sax solo.
Two great things to have in songs.
Monorails?
Monorails and funky tunes.
Yeah. I will tell you that while you are in a fancy tech startup, building, Google have got a monorail. They do. Has anyone been there?
Wow.
Has anyone been there? They have, yeah. And they've got, basically, Sydney used to have a monorail before a talkback radio guy got upset that it existed and they had to pull it down. It was really good. And Google use it as their meeting room. It's one of the meeting rooms in Sydney, in the Sydney office. Would anyone like to hazard a guess what that meeting room is called? It's called North Haverbrook, which is a Simpsons reference that one person in the room understood.
We were like, ooh, tough crowd.
It's called North Haverbrook. Anyway, this is a problem when you quote a show that's 30 years old. People are like, I've watched The Simpsons. Yeah, it was 20 years of it before you started.
The question from Sammy is, you've appeared in Aussie drama. Have you considered pursuing acting as a professional direction?
Who asked that?
Sammy.
Look, Sammy, I appreciate that. I've only ever appeared in Australian drama as myself.
Huh.
So I've crossed from reality into fantasy. I have been twice, been myself. On Neighbours, I once played myself, and on Offspring, I once played myself.
How'd you go with that?
Oh, mate.
Nailed it?
Have you ever been on a drama set? It's like, I don't often do this. I have on occasion, for some sort of ritual that is involved, usually with the indoctrination of a child into a certain, belief system, gone to a church that I am unfamiliar with. And you stand there, you stand there and you're like, I didn't grow up with any of this. Everyone seems to know what's going on. This all seems very serious. There's a man in a robe. He's swinging a thing. It smells funny. Oh, there's some scary paintings on the walls of people being murdered, but they're martyrs. This is weird.
That's
okay,
a lot
great.
to be going through.
We sprinkled something, and now the baby's part of the gang. Great. So it was that feeling. You get on a drama set, everyone seems to know what's going on, and you're like, I'll just stand here and just wait till they say go. do my nod and say the thing. Okay, we're just going to go on more. Okay, Osher, what we'd like to do is just a little bit less. Okay.
Do you remember what you had to say? Come on, I know it's in this.
Oh, I honestly can't remember. I can't remember. It was great. The Offspring one was a lot of fun. The Neighbours one was a million years ago. It's 2006. That was wild. No, look, I'm a terrible actor, which is why I've had to put songs in my show. But look, I don't know. I'm so familiar in people's lives. I think the only role I think I could play would be the kind of omnipotent overlord of the terrorism crime-fighting team, who's usually on some sort of headset looking at a screen going, hang on 1 second.
Morgan Freeman.
Victor Chichenko, yeah, from Chechnya, yeah. Yeah, get yourself down to blah, 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 like the person who gives the exposition, which just allows the crime-fighting team
very specific.
Go from one place to another place. Like, I think that's the only person I could do, and occasionally play against type and get into mad Keanu-style fistfights.
You're versatile.
That's probably all I could do.
I mean, there's some range there.
Yeah, but also, if you do all that stuff in front of the screen, you can shoot it all in 2 days, which is great.
Wow.
Yeah, think practically.
I'm learning. Learning practically and empathetically is what I'm doing. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
No worries.
You are a wealth of knowledge and an oracle. I'm
I
hoping
disagree with you.
I'm hoping someone tweets that, because I'm happy to publish that and put my name to it.
I disagree with you entirely, but thank you.
I agree with me. Everybody check out Osher's book back after the break. Also the podcast, the live show, everything. Make sure you do it. See you soon.
Hooray!